Hi everyone, it is P First Aid here. Just going to go through our next sort of session, which is aspiring head of department interview. So I'm going to go through the application process and then the interviewing process. And this is just again a big disclaimer out there. This is not something that is going to be a silver bullet. It's going to get you a job. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. I'm saying that it's based on my experience of having gone through this process quite a few times. And just some of the things that I wish I'd have known before I went through it. Okay, so without further ado, let's go. So in your application, there's three things really. I've spoken about cold calling before, but I think it's worth going over again. In terms of cold calling, realistically, you want to speak to the head teacher. Right now, you're going for a head of department role, okay, or maybe a key stage role, or head of year role, or whatever else. You've got to speak to the head because you've got to make sure that you've communicated not only what your knowledge possibly or your initial knowledge of the role might be, or also that they know your name because it's them that are going to be involved in the shortlisting process. So essentially, when you cold call, you want to make sure that you request the time slot with the head teacher. Don't just catch them when they're between lessons because they're not going to give you full attention. So make sure you've got hold of the secretary, make sure you've put in their calendar, they're going to speak to you for that allotted period of time. You're going to begin and end the conversation with your name, your full name, to make sure that you've really hammered home what your name is. So when they sort of pick up your application form, they're going to go, okay, I know that person's name, it's registered with me. And you're going to ask questions about the whole school vision. Now, something that is a really easy, cheap win is that however you phrase the question or you ask the question, that you use the exact wording that the headers used on their website. Okay, so the exact phrase. Don't talk around it. Say the exact words because what that's going to do is going to let the head know that you've read up on what you needed to read up on and that you have very clearly researched the school beforehand. And again, ask questions. Heads love talking about their own school, so ask, 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 ask. Okay, and I suppose that feeds into the next bits, which is obviously the research. So in terms of the research you need to do before you write your letter or the application form, essentially need to know if the school's for you or not, and that's the most important thing because as you are now going down the leadership route, and it's something that I'll speak about in this video and in my next video, which is going to be on driving culture change, is that you as a head of department have got to buy in to the vision of the school. If you don't buy into the vision of the school, it's absolutely pointless you being there because ultimately they want you to be a cog in the machine that's driving the engine that's going in one direction. There is no good you rebelling about the direction you're going into. All right, you've got to buy into that. So part of your research, and I'm sorry, but it's your responsibility to do your due diligence on that. Okay. I suppose then we're going to look at, okay, so we looked at the school, I know what's in the school, but then go a step further, look at the community. Look at the community issues that are in that postcode, okay? Are there any social issues? Are there any crime issues? You know, has that area been on the news recently? Are there anything that you can see from maybe national statistics that area has? Because I can tell you now that the governors at that school, they will have an idea of what their community is and the challenges that their community is facing. And obviously, you as a department, you're going to be driving towards that. Know the exam board if there's an exam board and they're involved in that. Make sure as well that you're talking about how you know about the subject's current performance. How is the subject performing and what sort of things can you do to help that, okay? The next one is then obviously your letter. Now, your letter, it's all about basics, making sure that you get the head teacher's name spelt right. It's a traditional letter. It's justified. It's the right font. It's been proved. All those sort of things are done and in place. And essentially, in your head of department letter, the first thing I would say is the use of I versus we. Really important, okay? That we are remembering that we are applying for a leadership position. So it is not I, okay? It's talking about we as a team. Okay, what you have done in your role in that team as a we, okay, and that's really important. We get that message across, okay. Also making sure that you go through the process of looking at the job description and person specification, picking out the things that you think jump out the page at you as being important, and then giving evidence of how you have led groups of people to work towards whatever that part of the job description or person specification is. Use things like the STAR method if you're unsure. And the last thing I would say really is talking about trying to get across what your buying is, particularly in your last paragraph. So what's your buying as a leader? What's your what gets you out of bed in the morning as a leader? What is your passion? Making that letter really stand out from the pack. Okay, so that last paragraph in that letter is a great opportunity for you to turn around and say, actually, this is my buy-in. This is why I want to be there. This is why I want to do it. Then moving on to the interview if you're obviously successful. So the next bit really then is the interview, and there is an accompanying document that sits underneath. It's in the link below that will obviously has got some of those commonly asked questions and some ways you might want to think about answering those questions. So the first thing is a visit. Okay, great idea. It shows your confidence. You approach a visit the same way as you would an interview. You turn up. You are humble. You are polite. You are dressed appropriately for an interview. You do not come in your your sort of jeans, t-shirt. You are dressed as if you were interviewing that day. And the best piece of advice I've been given is you've got 2 of these and 1 of these, use them in that ratio, okay? So make sure when you are there, you are not there to gloat, you are there to listen, you are there to absorb as much information as you can, because these are the absolute nuggets of information that you are going to have that you can then use later in your interview. So absorb as much information as you can do, okay? Speak to students when you're on your way, when you're on your way around. Ask them how they feel. Ask them what the best thing about the school is. Get people talking about why that school is so good. And the next thing, really, I suppose, is a big piece of learning that I took away is just don't compete. Or when you're on the day and you're there and you're surrounded by people and there's all sorts of measuring up against one another. Be polite, but don't consider yourself a useless chat. You are there to win. Okay, at the end of the day, you are not there for a day out. You are there to win. So make sure, right, that you are essentially not sort of bothering yourself with, oh, I know you, because such and such, and you're going through all that. Be polite, yes, but you are there to win. It is a tough day, and it's a day that is going to drain you. You are going to be tired, so you've got to make sure you are absolutely prepared throughout that day. In group tasks, and you are going to be faced with group tasks, be brave and be assertive. And I would say that being brave is really important and being assertive. Do not belittle and do not patronize. That's really important. Avoid feeding time scenarios. So a feeding time scenario would be if there's a group task, somebody gets something wrong, do not jump on their back. I've been there, I've seen it. I've been in a room when somebody's got something wrong and all of a sudden it's feeding time at the zoo. People are just, in it, being passive aggressive and humiliating them. At the end of the day, a head teacher does not want somebody who is going to cause huge upset. Yes, they want a leader that is strong, all right, but they do not want somebody that's just going to ruin people. In terms of strategy, and this is an important one when we talk about strategy, strategy is a process, okay? It starts with the vision. It starts with you, your understanding of the school and the wider community. And it is a process. It is a series of battles that you have got to win to achieve or move towards your vision. That's what strategy means. When they ask you about your strategic outlook, it's the process you're going to follow to get to where you want to be. That's what a strategic outlook is when they ask you that question, because they are going to, okay? Don't be afraid of taking in with you, by the way, a document that shows your strategic outlook, that shows the pathway towards your vision. Don't be afraid to do that and give it to them in your interview. It's about prioritizing where your wins are going to come from. And what I would say is, with your targets, be brave and ambitious, but also show the experience of a leader, which is then you understand that some things and some battles you are going to have to lose, all right, and that's to move towards where you want to be. And the last thing really is about leadership. If strategy is about process, leadership is about people, okay? So what you've got to look at is having the balance between non-negotiables with maintaining healthy working relationships with the people that are going to work with you and for you. Culture, understanding how a group forms, and you showing you understand that, knowing that there's going to be a storming process initially and that you're going to have to overcome that. Understanding that culture is a combination of challenge and standards, and you've got to make sure the standards are unflinching, but the challenge is something that can change depending on where you are. And this is going to be an evolutionary process. Your leadership is going to evolve over time, and you understand that the person you are on day one is not going to be the person you are on day 90, and you communicate that. Thank you for listening. I've kept it under 10 minutes. I've ramped them at the end there. Any questions, please ask. But yeah, thank you very much.